Okay, you guys, we have some react to get to. This is, I guess, from the Freestyle Chess South Africa press conference. This is Magnus Carlsen. Let's see what he has to say.
A question for you as well, Magnus, because it's been one of my favorite storylines of the year. Has really been freestyle chess breaking down walls and kind of taking on the established chess worlds. We've had the contours of some drama between freestyle and the more established chess world. It seems like that is settling, but do you enjoy that part of it? Do you enjoy breaking down some walls? Did they need it?
So it's interesting that this starts with a question. Now, I spoke about this a little bit earlier. I think this is very important to note here, that this is one of the things that with freestyle really bothers me overall, is that there is definitely massive drama at the start between freestyle and FIDE, and several players who are still active within FIDE circles, very specifically myself and Fabiano, we went out of our way to support what was going on. And at the end of the day, it feels like for our support of basically freestyle and what it was trying to go towards, that didn't really lead anywhere, and we stuck our necks out and put ourselves on the line, and really took risk. And it really hasn't been acknowledged, I think, that that was such a big thing. But let's see what Magnus says.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to be clear. Also, one other point I'm making, this not to be a negative Nancy. Freestyle is not breaking down walls. I'm just going to say it right here. Even though I do not like FIDE, there are many things that I think they do that are abhorrent and really just bad across the board. I'm just going to be honest and keep it a buck here. Just be real. It's not breaking down walls, and the main reason it's not breaking down walls, in my view, is because they're trying to act like it's a startup and it's a venture that's going to generate huge amounts of money. And when you have something that you're valuing at 40 to 50 million dollars, and by the way, I use those numbers because they're numbers that I've heard directly from people. I'm not just pulling a number, out of nowhere. For something that does not make money, and chess is something that I've been involved with for 30 years, and I frankly feel like outside of chess.com, pretty much nothing has made money. I do want to point out that I think is the biggest issue. If you had one event where, if you had one event where basically the what was I going to say? If you had one event where basically you put a lot of prize money, try to generate hype, I think that would have much more potential to become something big, something along those lines. When you set something up with the intention of trying to basically say that it's going to make a huge amount of money, I don't really buy into that narrative. So I think they're probably going to continue to be freestyle tournaments, but I'm very skeptical that they're going to continue to they're going to continue to hold events as they are. Every event is costing freestyle approximately $3 million. And as someone on the inside, someone who knows how content creation works, how sponsors work, I'm really skeptical that people are going to be willing to continue putting money into this venture in the long term. So in the short term for the players, it's very good, but I don't really think it's something viable that's going to last for the long run.
I think there are a lot of things about people's perceptions about chess that are quite a bit outdated. I think, for instance, the fact that Nakamura is going around playing these, as he calls it himself, referring to something I said many years ago, Mickey Mouse tournaments, in order to qualify for the candidates, in order to play the 40 games that are required by FIDE. I think that's absolutely, it's wild, it's insane. Why would you require somebody who's very clearly good enough to play in the candidates? Why would you require him to play these tournaments, which he doesn't really have time for? Well, you want to have the best players in the candidates, and he's clearly one of them. You also want to have active players. Well, he may not play classical all the time, but he plays tournaments every single week online. His job is still, while he's streaming, his job is still playing chess. So every time that he plays classical, he proves that he is one of the very best players in the world.
This is important though. Like, I mean, because this is actually not about freestyle. This is a completely separate topic. This is really important. And I would say as someone on the inside who's been around for a long time and seen things, one of the things that disturbs me the most, I'm not going to cry. One of the things that you get me to say that, so now it's going to be like in the video. One of the things that really disturbs, perturbs, whatever word you want to use to explain this, is that I feel a lot of decisions that are made and a lot of the direction that people think chess is going towards is directly because of social media. And I've said this many times before. I think it's very, very dangerous when perceptions of reality and what you think people feel is based off of the very loud minority of, let's just say, 1,000 people between Reddit and Twitter. And when you start basing things off of that, that is very, very, very dangerous. And so when Magnus talks about these things about perceptions, he's completely right. And a lot of the outcry on this topic, outcry, ha ha ha, very funny, is very specifically related to what people who have no influence and are very loud on the internet are saying. And I think that's very, very dangerous. And it's one of those things that actually, when I look back at the whole chess ecosystem and how things have been built, it actually makes me very disappointed that there was never some sort of centralized like chess website, and I don't mean chess.com, but some sort of centralized chess website that has a forum with like thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people actively posting. Because like when you look at the real reality, the real viewership of chess that everybody who is trying to get to, it is like the several hundred thousand people who watch YouTube videos every day. It is not the very loud, let's just say 1,000 people on Reddit and Twitter that are actually that actually matter, that you want to please. So it's very, very dangerous with perceptions. Very, very dangerous. Back to the point about what Magnus is saying. Of course, I think at the end of the day, and maybe Magnus is going to say this too, I think the reality is that classical chess should probably stay as it is, but there has to be a big push towards faster time controls just in general.
I don't think he's had a single bad tournament in 4 or 5 years. And so why would you then require him?
By the way, you know what's really funny also? This is a side note. You know what's really, really funny about this is that Magnus, he's wearing one of these watches too, like I am. Like I don't know if it's a Garmin or a Whoop or what it is, but he's wearing one of these watches too now all the time, which maybe we're just getting old or something, and we're trying to take care of ourselves. But it kind of makes me chuckle just a touch, because like I'm always wearing a watch too. Let's keep going.
To play those 40 games, that's one of the things which I think it's kind of holding the chess world back a bit, is that there's still so much emphasis on kind of normal classical chess being the gold standard, and I think we're seeing more and more that there's so much more. And guess what? The players that don't focus on playing classical tournaments every day, when they do play classical tournaments, they're not any worse. They're not getting worse by playing freestyle, by playing rapid, by playing the esports World Cup and so on. So yeah, I think that's a bit. You see Vincent as well prove his worth in Vice now, and now his classical rating is finally catching up to that as well. So whether I enjoy the clashes or not, well, it riles me up sometimes.
Okay. So someone asked a question. Yeah, when I talk about chess, because this is another very important point. The reality is, I don't care if it's freestyle, any startup, whatever it might be, anybody who's trying to break into chess and thinks they can make money. The audience that you're trying to capture is not the people on Twitter. It is not the people on Reddit. It's literally the hundreds of thousands of people who watch YouTube videos. And then if you further expand it, the probably millions of people who play casually on the chess.com app every day. That is anybody who's trying to make money in chess. That is the audience that you have to reach. If you can reach that audience even in a small margin, that is where the money is. And that's important to note, because I don't think that's definitely not what people at FIDE specifically are trying to do. This is not, I don't want to turn this into a FIDE rant, but when you have people in chess who are extremely strong players, one of the things that you learn from the very start when you start playing chess is you learn that your rating is basically your worth or net worth or value. I'm trying to be cheeky by saying net worth, but you learn that your currency or the cachet, the gravitas, whatever it is based on your rating. And when you have people who are very, very strong chess players at FIDE specifically making these decisions, they're making these decisions from the standpoint of being former professional chess players, not from the standpoint of the casual fan or someone who's in business. And so it's very, very important that or it's very, very important to note these things because they're very, very critical towards the end goal. Now, the one thing FIDE has going for it that I've said many times very specifically is they do have the candidates tournament and they do have the world championship match, which does get very, very big viewership. There's no disputing that the world championship is still the gold standard. It does generate the most interest, for sure. But at the end of the day, you know, these things do matter. And when you're trying to do things from this vantage point of like pleasing a small audience of elite players, bad things are going to happen. Bad things are going to happen. It's really just that simple. And also look at Ali Reza, another player. This is actually just an example. If you look at Ali Reza Firouzja, in many ways, I would say that the majority of income, Ali Reza is a very stark example, but Ali Reza, he probably makes, I'm going to take a guess that he makes 75 to 80% of his money at least from playing online tournaments and or Rapid Blitz and or Esports World Cup. So from just the online sphere and sponsorships related to that and prize money from online events, I think Ali Reza makes 80% of his money at least from that. And it might even be higher than that, but he's doing very well. So the emphasis on classical chess is definitely changing quite a bit.
Apart from that, I personally play the tournaments that I enjoy. I think the whole discussion with FIDE back in the day, with them threatening players.
Hikaru, I think you're ignoring a lot of players who actually enjoy classical chess and wouldn't switch to Blitz. You completely miss my point when I talk about this. When it comes to classical chess, I'm not saying that tournaments should be Blitz. I think I think trying to do something like Game 45, what Norway's trying to do, is along the right lines. I think it's probably still too fast. But as I said, if you look at chess and you're trying to generate revenue, you're trying to do something to bring more interest to the game. Like the only audience that matters is literally this audience of casual YouTube viewers who are watching this video. Thank you very much. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, as well as the people who just open the chess.com app every day and just play against the bot or play 1 or 2 games casually. That is the audience that you're trying to touch or to hit, I should say. Actually, both those words kind of they were all the time, but they could be taken the wrong way. But I think you guys get the point of what I'm saying. So let's finish this up.
Trying to assert their rights on something they didn't have the right for. Was that whole discussion was stupid, but that's how it is.
No. For anybody who says, but I'm so critical, I'm still critical of Norway, but I'm critical of Norway and FIDE for a very, very different reason. I understand what you're saying about Norway. That's actually very valid to bring that up, because if you've watched videos, you've probably seen me say that. I'm very critical of it because what I think Norway should be doing is I think that Norway should be doing this independently of FIDE. I don't think attaching total championship, total world championship, whatever it is, those rights actually matter. I don't think that matters for the audience. So you're not wrong to think that I'm being over the top positive, but I think if that were standalone, that would be better. I think it's bad across the board because what it does is anything that involves FIDE, generally FIDE is looking for their cut. There's no disputing that. And when FIDE is looking for their cut and you involve them, you never know how much control you're really going to have over your event and how much control FIDE is going to have. And I think trying to combine it with the candidates and or the world championship is a very, very, very big mistake in my book. So I don't have a problem. I think the format, it's fundamentally, I like the concept of trying to do it, but I think it should be a standalone thing separate from FIDE. I don't think FIDE should be a part of it
at this point, but I think overall the discourse in the chess world when it comes to these things it's a little bit outdated, and I certainly want to change that.
Anyone else? Yes, please.
That's it.
Yeah. Question for Magnus, just to follow up on the time controls and stuff. FIDE just had a pilot at the Women's World Team Championships, where they had a time control of 45 minutes plus 30 seconds.
Yes, I saw this.
To be rated as classical chess. Do you applaud that pilot, and do you see that in the future?
Yeah. So the way that I see chess is that it's supposed to be challenging. And the problem is that classical, as it has been played in the past, it is not challenging enough. That's simply how I feel, especially now that it is so easy to survive in the openings. So I very much applaud that. I think
so. For anybody who's asking the context, there was a recent, I think, women's team world championship, if I'm not mistaken. It was held, I believe, in Linares, Spain. And the girls in that event, they were playing, I believe it was game with 45 minutes and 10-second increment, and it was rated as classical chess, whereas normally anything under, I believe, 60 minutes or maybe it's 90 minutes can't be counted as classical chess. So that's the context for what Magnus is referring to here. The second part about chess is too easy. This is just Magnus being a great chess player. So I'll explain this to you in plain English. What Magnus is basically saying here is that it's in a couple of hours to one day, you can more or less prepare a big surprise and effectively never get into trouble in a game. And then if you have like an hour or 2 hours left for the rest of the game, if you're above a certain level, you'll never lose from certain types of positions. So that's what Magnus is referring to here. He's basically saying that top chess players, the preparation is too easy, computers are too strong, and if you're really desperate to be extremely boring, you're going to be able to make a draw. I wouldn't say it will, because that's a little bit too that's oversimplified, but it's very, very easy, and it requires insane amounts of work. And many times the way you win games now is more about your opponent forgetting a move or confusing them very slightly, or you just play a long game. You just try to play a boring game with all the pieces on the board, which is why something like the Italian opening is played so often these days. So that's like for the layman who's obviously not going to understand what Magnus is saying when he says chess is too easy. That's what he means. It's important to note.
As chess players, one thing that is ingrained in us and is not that hard to is not that easy to change is that ratings mean something.
But this is also important before he goes off on the rating bit. Like, for anybody who's watching, I'm just going to tell you guys, if you are below 2600 level, chess is a slow chess, fast chess, any chess. Preparation is not the same thing. I mean, basically, I'm trying to think the way to put this. What Magnus is saying is that players who are so strong, the fundamental understanding is so good that basically if they get to certain types of positions, they will never lose as long as they have enough time. But if you're like 2300, 2400, 2500, I would say even up to maybe 2600, it's not a problem at all. Preparation is preparation, getting a game, studying openings, it's very much a real thing. It's only something that applies to probably the top like 150 players in the world where this is an issue. So when Magnus says this, everybody in chat, everybody who watches this YouTube video is be like, what's he talking about? Chess is a great game. Even if you're a 2200 or 2300 like my wife is, she loves the game. It's very easy to prepare and get a position. But so it's like it's only an issue at the very top, and this is also why I think freestyle does not the freestyle events do not resonate with a lot of people. Is because when you look at it, for everybody except like the top 150 players in the world, and it's probably even less than that, but let's just say top 150 in the world, this is not an issue that exists. Everybody's happy with regular chess. You're happy to study the Sicilian Dragon. You're happy to study the Frankenstein Dracula variation in the Vienna. Like, there are all these cool openings, there's all this great lore theory, everything, and it's not a problem. And that's why I think freestyle suffers, because you're doing something that caters to literally the top 0.01%, but you're not going to be able to reach that 99.99% of viewers who play casually on their phone against the bot or watch YouTube videos. And that's why it really, really struggles a lot, or why I think the freestyle events are struggling. And even what Magnus is saying, it's just not applicable. So it is a huge problem for top players, but it's not a problem for everybody else. So it's very, very confusing.
And when you classically rate those tournaments, that means something. That's why it means something to get a rating for freestyle as well. So I applaud that. The shorter time controls also means that some of the safety blanket is away. You're not getting that second or even third time control to be able to easily survive worse endgames when you got to that point, which is something that we've seen in Norway chess, that there's been more decisive games, and that's partly exactly because of that. You have more than enough time to play a very good game, but guess what? You're not getting extra time after 40 moves.
Yeah, so again, I'll sum this up for everybody who's watching, because you guys aren't professional chess players here. Magnus is basically saying if you're a strong enough player and you have enough time on the clock, you will be able to defend every type of position. I mean, not literally every type, because you will lose games here or there, but you'll more or less be able to defend like 99% of the time and you won't lose. But if you get low on time, you're going to make blunders. Mistakes happen when players get low on time. So effectively, at the top level, if you can remove the openings and think that a player gets to move 20 with an hour and a half or 2 hours on the clock, that is enough time to where it's going to be extremely difficult for them to make a blunder, because there's never going to be pressure on the clock. They've got all the time in the world. So it's just very, very hard to win games. But as I'm saying, all this stuff completely irrelevant to 99.99% chess players. So unless you're a 2600 GM watching this, or better, maybe you're Wesley or somebody, this does not apply to you at all.
As you're used to, and if you don't adapt to that, then it's going to be tough. And it's the same thing with 45 minutes. It's oceans of time to think, especially if you get 30 seconds increment. But still, you gotta use it. You gotta use it well. So yeah, I think it's a much needed. It's a great change, and I will give FIDE that they do eventually adapt to a lot of things. It sometimes takes a bit of time, but that's
my only problem with this, by the way, is that I don't think this is a problem that I think my basic issue with this whole concept is that it's something that matters again to people who are like 2600 plus. But if you're a female player and you're 2400, I think the results, if you play classical chess, you're not going to have a bunch of draws. So it's a problem, of course, trying to force a change across the board when it's something that should be probably only applied to literally 2700 plus players, in my opinion. Or I can take it the other way and tell you guys, if FIDE wants to start classically rating game 45s, then literally just say the world championship is going to be a quicker time control going forward, and that's that. Just scrap everything completely from the old style. Don't try to have these super long 7-hour classical games as a world championship. Just scrap it completely and have like the world championship be based off of the shorter time control. So that's kind of my view. I actually think that Magnus is a little bit wrong here. I don't think this should be applied across the board. I think this is something that only applies to the very top players. I don't think it's something that should be applied to people who are like 2400, 2500. It should only apply to the very top levels. So I do disagree with Magnus very slightly on this point. But you know, whatever.
Still a positive.
What do I mean doesn't apply to the women? I'm saying the female term that happened in Linares, the players were like 24, 2500. This is something that I think only, again, this is the problem. It's something that matters to the top 100, 150 players in the world. The other, 3 million FIDE rated players in the world, it does not matter at all. So I don't really think that it's something that should happen across the board. People will watch a 7-hour game if it's the world championship, by the way. They will. Otherwise, they won't. But if it's the world championship, they will. And that's also why I don't understand FIDE doing this whole thing with Norway, because FIDE is also diluting their product. And at the end of the day, they're basically weakening the classical world championship potentially. And for what? It's the only thing that FIDE has that's actually successful at the moment. Let's keep going.
Development for sure.
I think that might be it. Is that it?
I have a question for you, Jan. I mean, we're looking at the financial viability of creating something like this. You've now kept it going for nearly 2 years. What's your thoughts on how this is gonna be sustainable? I mean, you're fighting on a bit different turf than what FIDE is. They have their kind of sponsors. You're going more into the more commercial world. Are they embracing it?
Yes. Not as far.
Yeah. I don't want to get into the segment. I think I'm going to end it there because like I'm going to start shaking my head a lot. I'm just going to start shaking my head. So I'm going to end it right there. Yeah. So I mostly thought that what Magnus said is reasonable. I think what I would say is I feel like the problem is the issues within chess that apply to top players do not apply to most players, including strong players who are like 24, 2500, which makes it very difficult. And I think it's very difficult because you also don't want to apply something to a little bit, not everything. So I think in general, I agree with Magnus overall about most of these points. I think, the biggest point being that way too much attention is given to people who comment on Twitter and Reddit. Way too much attention is given to that segment of the audience that at most is like 1,000 people, and really a lot of trolls, a lot of people who have no influence. But when you see those comments, you generally take that as being the truth. But if you look at YouTube, which is the real ocean of chess fans, it's very, very different. And so I think Magnus is right about this outrage. I think, you know, way too many cues and directions are being taken from that. So I think he's right. And of course, with me playing the tournaments, I think that, of course, it's completely fine. We saw Prague do the exact same thing. He went to London. He did not play the Elite event. He played the weaker Open, which he won, which was completely within his rights, and obviously the correct thing to do to guarantee that he makes the candidates. So I think that in general, I mean, I agree with most of what Magnus says. There are parts I don't agree, but hey, that's that.